Welcome back to the Premier League. Welcome back to the Football Tragics. I'm your host, Aaron, joined here by Tony. Tony, talk to me. How you doing today, mate? Premier League's back. Good to have it back.
Mate, Premier League's back. We got a clean sheet. We got the result. It's a good day, mate. It's a good day.
Look, we're both happy men this week. Chelsea actually won a game as well, thankfully. Got rid of a 3 loss in a row. So we're going to get straight into it because there's quite a few goals to get through. A few decent games in there. I wouldn't say many upsets, unfortunately. It's always good to see an upset, get a few clickbaits out of there, but not really any this week. But we'll start off with the first game. It is Brentford 2-2 with Tottenham. Look, Tony, Brentford went up 2-0 this game. Is it a shock? Spurs are slow starters. I think for the first, they've gone behind in the last 9 games, I think it is. So talk to me about Spurs, and kind of 2-2 draw is not really good enough for them, is it?
Yeah, I mean, both sides of it don't really shock me. We know what Brentford can do at home. When they go away on the road, they struggle. When they're playing at home, they're a tough team to beat. Heck, they slapped my boys 4-0 to start the season. So I can't really say too much negative about Brentford. They play well at home. Tottenham, they've got the most points, obviously, from losing positions this year. They're getting that tag, the comeback kins, but okay, yes, you can do it against the Brentford. You can do it against, let's say, a Fulham, something like that. But when you're coming up against a Manchester City, a Liverpool, a Chelsea to an extent, a United, you give them a 2-0 lead, they're just going to sit back. They're going to hold that result. So, yes, they got away with it. They got a point. It doesn't do them a lot of favours, obviously, on the ladder. United can now jump them with their game in hand when they eventually play that. So they can drop out of the top 4. But overall, Harry Kane gets his goal, obviously, after the World Cup. All that drama, he kind of gets back on the right foot. And for Tottenham, well, again, you showed some fight, but it wasn't a pretty fight to get there in the first place.
Yeah, you're definitely right about Brentford. I mean, they are a very strong team. They've shown that. Ivan Toney's still playing, hasn't been hit with his suspension just yet. I think he's going to cop a pretty heavy one. We've seen players in the past that have copped a long time for less. So I reckon he's facing a few years, if not more. But we'll wait and see what that is. I don't think it's till mid-January. But look, Ivan Toney did score. So did Harry Kane, kind of bounced back after the World Cup. I don't know if you heard the Brentford fans singing like Tony Berry, that kind of thing for the penalty, which was a good laugh. But yeah, Tony, look, Tottenham went behind, and yes, you're right, they have the most points from losing positions. But as I said, they've conceded in the last 9 first. It's just not good enough, is it? Because imagine what they'd do if they scored first. They can run away with the game, but they're always facing an uphill battle. I mean, 2-0 down for 2-2 draw, yes, you take that, but it's only 1 point at the end of the day against Brentford. And yes, Brentford very good at home, but I still think as Spurs, who are challenging top 4, if not, should be arguably going for more these days, should be doing better against Brentford, in my opinion. But look, 2-2 draw to start the round off. Can't ask for much more. Premier League's back after the World Cup, and we got 4 goals in the first game. So let's move into the next game, which was Fulham 3-0 over Palace. Did this one shock you, Tony?
I think the result as a whole didn't shock me. I think we saw that Mitrovic was going to score. He just seems to be on some tear. I don't know what they've done this time, but they've come up and it looks like they're going to stay up the way they're playing. Obviously, the result does go down to there was 2 red cards. I know it was 1-0 at the stage, but there was 2 red cards to Crystal Palace. So it does change the game, but it's hard to look into. Like, are Fulham going to dominate Crystal Palace if it's 11v11? Probably not, but good result for Fulham. It probably puts him in the right direction of staying up. But for Palace, we've given him a lot of praise, but it's a lot of questions for Vieira now moving forward, how he can turn this around and change his squad moving forward.
Yeah, look, Palace are sitting in 11th, Fulham in 9th. So not the worst spot to be sitting for Patrick Vieira. I think he's still got obviously plenty of time, and there's a lot worse teams than he is right now. But they managed 0 shots on target this game. I know, like you said, down to 9 men, but before that, what were they doing? At home, I think
they're only averaging a goal a game, Aaron. They're only averaging a goal a game as well.
Which, I mean, in the Premier League, I don't think is good enough. If they've got the star power, in my opinion. They've got Wolf Zaha, Elise, Eze, all these players who can score goals. Not to Ayew up top as well, but I think at home Palace should be looking for more than a point here. They should be going for 3 points here. So a 3-0 loss, yes, it probably reflects the fact that they got 2 red cards, but before that, they weren't doing anything. And Fulham, now to turn it on the other end, is just absolutely having a great season. Anybody, if you said to me they're going to be sitting 9th at Christmas time or just after Christmas, I would have probably went, no way. They've probably gone either straight back down or sitting thereabouts. Mitrovic hit double figures for the season. They're just flying on all cylinders right now, Fulham, and it's brilliant to see because I don't like seeing teams that who come up go straight back down. It's not enjoyable to see. We like to see a bit of stability there and a few different teams coming here and there. So this could be a year that we do see quite a few fresh faces go down, which we'll get into. But we talk about now Wolves over Everton 2-1. This one, I mean, it's pretty funny because Everton threw everything at it at the end, trying to get that winner in at home, and in the end considered a 95th minute goal to El Nuri. Tony, again, like an Everton team, they should be doing a lot better than they are, right? Like they look good to start the season. I think they had the best goals conceded record, and then all of a sudden they're just shipping goals for fun now, and they're sitting 2 points out of relegation zone. So 1 point ahead of the relegation zone. What needs to change for them?
I mean, I don't know. I thought they did come down under. They did play against obviously a weakened Celtic side. They played against the Wanderers, the likes of that. But I thought they were very impressive when they were here in attack. Now, I know the level of play probably wasn't as high as the Premier League, but is it just they can't compete when they have, I mean, don't get me started about Wolves. They play a shit level of football. They like to sit in. It's like they drag you down to their shit and they're like, we're going to beat you while we're down there. And a 95th minute, it's an absolute shithousery. But I think if you take away the stats here, Everton dominate possession, shots on target, shots off goal, free kicks. Like the whole thing says Everton's going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Wolves go on the counter and win it in the 95th. So it's the old cliche thing, but Everton just need to stay switched on for that full 95, 96, 97 minutes, whatever it is. Stay switched on. Get a few players that can strengthen that bench to help when you do make those substitutions. And I think they'll do enough to stay up.
Yeah, you're right. It does need to change because, like you said, we were both at that game against Western Sydney, and they look good. I mean, it was close for here and there, but when they put it together, I know, again, like it's a Wanderers, it's not a Premier League side, but they played great football, and you thought this is a football they should be playing under Lampard. But then they go back to the Premier League, and yes, they go and play a Wolves who probably do drag you down to their level, but at home, Everton should be pulling Wolves off the park, in my opinion. They've got a better team. They've been ridiculed by a few different injuries here and there throughout the season, but for the most part, this is one of their stronger sides they've got. They've got most of their lads back. So to lose this one at home, especially the way they did, it's heartbreaking for them. But just the way they lost it, the fact that they had, 2 men back was just like, I know you're chasing a game, you want the 3 points, but you never leave 2 men back when it's 1-1. Maybe if it's 1-0, obviously, you're down. But when you're drawing, I mean, a point's better than nothing, right? That could be the deciding point if they stay up or they go down. So for a team like Wolves to go and snatch a winner here, who are sitting below them on the ladder, from an Everton standpoint, not good enough. And honestly, I'd hate to see it happen, but I think Lampard's days well and truly could be numbered. He just needs to start grinding out results, and it's not happening. So I think he's got a few games left to save his gig. But yeah, let's talk about a team now who is absolutely flying, even after the World Cup. Tony, Newcastle 3-0 over Leicester. Didn't take them long. What was it? Let me just check here. 3 minutes before they got on the score sheet. Were you surprised to see them start so quickly after the World Cup? Did you think it was going to hinder their start or their return to the Premier League, or was this expected?
I think I expected a Newcastle result. I expected them to do it quite convincingly. Now, a 3rd-minute penalty, a 7th-minute goal. I didn't expect it to be that quick. Obviously, the A-League's been on for a while. We've seen what that's done to teams once they've come back from the World Cup. Teams have struggled who were flying high. So it is an interesting one. I have to say, why did Jack Grealish have to say something about Almiron? That guy's been an absolute freak since Grealish decided to open up his mouth. Fair play to him. Chris Wood from the penalty spot. The game was over in the 7th minute. They added the 3rd in the 32nd, and the second half kind of just played itself out. But I think from a neutral standpoint, they've got billions of dollars, whatever they've got they can spend. They haven't really thrown the checkbook yet, which is quite scary how well they're flying, having not done a Man City and thrown $100 billion at someone. So quite impressive and quite exciting if you're a Newcastle fan.
Which is why you've just got to respect the come up of Newcastle, right? Like, there's nobody can chat anything about them because they've got a great manager in Eddie Howe. They've not spent a ton of money. Yes, they've got a couple of decent players in like Bruno Guimaraes, who's proved to be one of the best holding midfielders in the country right now. But they've not just gone and signed like a $100 million player, like you said, like a Man City. So you've just got to respect the come up, and they're doing it in a nice way because they could easily go and spend 200 million in the same window, 300 million, offer everybody wages, whatever. But they signed Kieran Trippier was their first, and that was supposed to be this big money signing. Everybody was going, oh, he's going for the cash. But I mean, he's been the best right back since he's come, pretty much. And then, as I said, Bruno Guimaraes, Chris Woods, whoever else has come in, Dan Burn. But they're just playing remarkable right now against the Leicester side, who have started to get a little bit better, started to stabilise a bit more, because we know how they started, and we all thought Brendan Rodgers was getting the sack. But yeah, absolutely put three past them early doors, game over before it even started. Almiron scores again, 9 goals now for the season. He's having a blinder. And Joelinton, who, again, ever since he was put into that midfield role, has been brilliant, gets on the score sheet from a header. So cruise control for them. At the time, I put them into second on the ladder. And again, if you're a Newcastle fan, you take that every day of the week. They could realistically be looking at Champions League football. Is that off the cards, Tony?
Do you think if though they don't get Champions League football, is it a bad season given how they've gone so far? Like, okay, come January, they're going to be sitting, I think it's third. I don't think they can drop with the early fixtures, but say they're sitting third in January. If they finish this season in 6th or 7th, are fans going to be disappointed, or are they going to be happy that, okay, we've got Europa League? Like, it's one of those 50-50 calls right now.
It's definitely a glass half empty, glass half full kind of scenario, because, yeah, if you're a Newcastle fan, you probably take a top half finish and you continue to build. But then when you're sitting so high up, what do you say? Do you say, oh, should have been Champions League football? It's the same as Arsenal. Like, for me, I still don't think Arsenal's winning the league, but realistically they could. So if they now bottle it, if that's the way we put it, to Man City and they finish second, is that a poor season because of how far along they were sitting in first? Or do they take a Champions League football?
City scare me. So I wouldn't say that's a bad result.
Exactly. So I think it's the same for Newcastle. Like, if you're getting Champions League football, remarkable. But if you get Europa League, still a brilliant season. I think if you were to miss out on altogether European football, that would maybe be a little bit of a hiccup, because they have built so well. But we expect them to spend money. I think January will be important for them. They don't really need to because of the way they're playing, but they will, because they have the money to. Why not? But they won't do it in a crazy way. We're not going to obviously go and sign Mbappe or Anton Griezmann or anything like that. They're going to sign the players they need. And that's what I like about him, because Eddie Howe knows who he wants, and he just signs the missing puzzle pieces rather than just, go out and buy a whole new complete puzzle. So fair play to Newcastle. Leicester, again, what are they sitting now? They're in 13th. They've kind of steadied their ship a bit. This loss at home is disappointing, but they'll be fine. They'll come good, I think, or thereabouts. Now let's talk about a team who maybe not come good, Tony. They've just got a new manager in, lost against Liverpool. Tough game, obviously, you're first in charge, but now you've gone and shipped 3 against Brighton at home. Nathan Jones in charge of Leicester. They're sitting. In charge of Southampton. They're sitting bottom of the table, Tony. What are your thoughts?
Disappointing. Southampton, I'm not going to say they have the talent across the park, but they have the talented players like the Jane Ward-Prowses that they shouldn't be sitting in this position this early in the season. They should be that mid-table to 13th, 14th. They shouldn't really drop any lower than that. Now, you look at this game, you break it down, an absolute worldie, obviously, from Solly March, an absolute, was it the error from the goalkeeper? Was that this game? Where he should have pulled off that save?
I believe that was in the Arsenal game, but it could have been one in this game. Sorry. I can't remember quite.
The own goal. So, you look at this and you say, on another day, Southampton put away one of their, or 2 of their, 14 shots. So, they put those away. They get the result. But I don't know. I mean, it took him 3 or 4 years, but maybe Morty was right. Maybe this is the year Southampton do go down. But, it's not looking very pretty, and it doesn't look like there's any signs of improvement just yet.
Yeah, I think, as I said, Morty, as you said, Morty could be right, because as much as I like Southampton, don't want to see them go down, like a few of their players there, especially Prowse and players like that. It's not looking good for them. And unfortunately for them, you can't exactly say there's teams worse than them, because they probably are playing the worst in the league, if not for the likes of Wolves. But bottom of the table, halfway through the season, going into the new year, is not good enough. And at home, again, I know Brighton's they've been quite good. What are they sitting in the table right now? They're up to 7th. They're having a great season, but still fair to Southampton. You'd hope on their end should be getting 8 point here, if not more. Southampton obviously do have quite a number of of international players, I'd say. I know he didn't play this game, but Bela Kotschap played for Germany at the World Cup. Like, players like that playing for a Southampton shouldn't be getting their side relegated. So hopefully he comes in and steadies the ship a bit. Actually, I do remember you were right with the goalkeeper. I did have an absolute stinker this game. I was just looking at the FOTMob scores and what he put up, a 4.9. But yeah, look, Ward Prowse missed a penalty. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one for Southampton. They need to bounce back, and needs to do it quick, because you're bringing a new manager. You expect results pretty much straight away, and he hasn't done that just yet. Only 2 games in, but yeah. On the other end, Brighton, talking about them, Tony, they're having a great season. Again, like in Newcastle, they're just kind of up there. Not quite as much, but they're just smashing it.
Yeah, it's pretty positive, and it's going to show you, although Potter might have left, the foundations he laid, the formations, the players he brought in. You're a Chelsea fan, you'd be excited seeing this going, okay, maybe not this year, maybe halfway through next year, but it's coming. Like, he's left, and it's as if Potter hasn't left. The football's still the same. They're still playing brilliant football. They're scoring absolute worldies. Like, I don't think Solly March even knew he had that in him. So fair play to him. But
you saw what he did in the cup the other day. Skied it, put it worse than Hurricanes.
Maybe that's what he was trying to do. Maybe he just needed that extra 20 meters for it to go in. So, fair play to Brighton. Obviously, we saw last year they were flying high. They missed Europe altogether. So now it's, can they stay in that fight? Can they stay in that battle? Can they get Europa League football? Because then the sky's the limit with the players they can bring in and improve this squad. So let's hope it keeps going for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the foundations that Graham Potter left, it excites me as a Chelsea fan, as long as he's given time, of course. And I think he's one of those managers who builds something rather than just comes in and wins a cup and then goes, He obviously has his reasons. He has his foundations, like you said, the way you put it, But also, De Zerbi that's come in plays obviously a very similar style of football, so it just works because they knew what they were playing. And he's come in and obviously added in a few things of his own here and there, but it's working for Brighton. And fair play to De Zerbi. And again, the sky's the limit for Brighton. They could go far. Now, Aston Villa lost to Liverpool at home. And look, the result definitely doesn't reflect the game in this one. 3-1 to Liverpool, but how many chances did Villa miss?
Oh, I mean, they missed their chances, but this is a Liverpool side where they may have started the season struggling. They may have been, 0 from 3? They were in shambles. Now, obviously, they've come back from the World Cup. It's saying here, I've just read a stat that it's their first time they've won 3 straight games this year. So that's massive. They're building momentum. They've got Gakpo coming in. Obviously, that's a big signing for them. Again, Villa, World Cup hangover, maybe. Like, I get they didn't have many players there, but when you're starting to find form and the World Cup hits, everything falls apart. So Villa, I think they're stepping in the right direction. They obviously had the chances. They took it to Liverpool. They're going to beat teams on their day, but this was a game where Liverpool do what Liverpool do. Salah gets on the score sheet. Andy Robinson's playing right forward, left forward, wherever he wants to play to get those assists. Van Dijk got on the score sheet. And obviously, what was the young kid's name? Bajetic gets on the score sheet, obviously, in the 81st minute. So fair play to him. I hope it doesn't start their season, but it's quite scary because they're not that far out of the top 4.
Yeah, that's it. For the bad season that they supposedly have had, they are sitting, they're sitting, 4 points behind you guys in 5th. Only 6 points or so off top 4, 5 points off top 4. So they've definitely got their season back on track. And the likes of Cody Gakpo signing now just adds another element when he comes in January. But for me, I mean, they didn't sign a midfielder yet. I mean, I assume they will, but their first business was Cody Gakpo rather than signing Enzo Fernandez that they were apparently looking at. So I don't know if their priorities are in the right spot, because do they need another striker? Probably not, or a winger, whatever he wants to play. They're probably not. But if they end their window, they sign Cody Gakpo, all well and good. But if they didn't recruit in the midfield, if they didn't sign when they need to, I think the same issues could continue to happen. But yeah, they're definitely getting on track, and it could be scary to see how good they can become again, because Klopp's definitely not lost the dressing room or anything like that. They're still all playing for him. Trent come back from the World Cup and didn't play, but put in that brilliant ball for Robbo for the assist. Salah's still having a good season, even though he's kind of flying under the radar. So yeah, it could be pretty scary. See how they do. But now Emery at Aston Villa, I think will make them a better side. They need to give him a bit of time. I think that was a good appointment, and they just need to kind of ride the little wave. They might go through a bit of a struggling time, but hopefully he kind of gets his philosophy throughout the club and builds something and gets them to safety. I assume, they're safe enough as it is. I think they'll steady and then hopefully build on for a top half finish next year. Now, let's talk about the guys flying high, I suppose. I couldn't even get my words out there. Arsenal 3-1, Tony. They're sitting top of the table. They'll go into the new year at the top. No World Cup hangover. They've been fine. Talk to me about them.
I think it was a 45-minute World Cup hangover because that's probably the worst or one of the worst 45 minutes I've seen Arsenal play. Obviously, they went down 1-0, but then that second half was probably one of the best 45 minutes I've seen Arsenal play this year. Obviously, no Gabriel up top. It's kind of those questions of who's going to score the goals, who's going to do this. And it's as if you throw it back to those olden teams. Like, I don't want to compare them here, but when they had all those young kids at United and they just play flamboyant, fun style of football, they knock the ball around, where a lot of teams these days are like, oh, let's do this. Oh, it didn't work. We'll try it again and again and again, where Arsenal just seem to mix it up. They pass the ball around. Saka's having a brilliant season. Martinelli's having a brilliant season. And Nketiah obviously is the man they're going to look to now that Gabriel is out injured. So if you're an Arsenal fan, I think you're very, very optimistic that you might be able to hold on. But I think you've got to then look at their next few fixtures, and that's going to determine how their season goes. From memory, they've got a United, a Chelsea. I think there's a Spurs in there. I think a couple of weeks later, it's a City in there. Like, they have some big games coming up. So January, February determines how far this team can go.
Yeah, absolutely. They've still got to play City twice, and those 2 games, 6 points right there. That's the talking point. That's the one they need to at least get. I'd say to win the league, they need to get 4 points from those games. But do I see them getting any points? Probably not, to be honest with you. But like you said, Gabriel Jesus up top was injured at the World Cup. So he'll be out for a number of months now. Eddie Nketiah is the player they need to turn to, and he needs to have a big season within that time he's going to be giving game time, because, I mean, they're turning to him. He hasn't been the best at Arsenal, let's be honest, but I think he's scored in his last 11 starts at the Emirates now. So Homeboy is doing it at the Emirates, at the carpet, and his goal was very impressive this game. Very impressive. The turn, the finish, fantastic. Fabianski had an absolute stinker. He's an ex-Arsenal man. Maybe that's why. Maybe he wants them to win the league. But yeah, like you said, that first half, disgusting. Second half, got it on, put 3 past them, and came out with the 3 points. Game of 2 halves, and it's enough. Against a West Ham team, look, again, I don't think West Ham's been great. They're sitting all around the same spot as Everton. They should be a lot better for who they are, but they're not quite there. And again, David Moyes could be on the chopping block quite soon if he's not careful. So he needs to watch himself. They need to bounce back in a good way. But fair play to Arsenal. They continue to do it every week. I wasn't saying I'm doubting them yet, because I still think that they should be beating a team like West Ham at home. But they get it done, and they're sitting pretty at the top of the table. And if you're an Arsenal fan, you'd be bloody happy, that's for sure. Now, as a Chelsea fan, can I get into us 2-0 over Bournemouth? It's about bloody time we won a game. We snapped a 3-game losing streak in the Premier League, and maybe that World Cup break was the best thing for us, because we actually look good. I know it's Bournemouth, and that's the kind of takeaway from it, is it's only Bournemouth. But we look good. We played some great football. Started the team that it's probably our best lineup we could have started. And unfortunately, the only takeaway from this that I can't be happy about is the fact that Reece James has just gone and done the exact same injury that he just came back from. So another month out without him, maybe even longer, depending how his recovery goes and how quickly they rush him. But yeah, that's really unfortunate one, because everything else was pretty much perfect. I would have liked to score a few more goals. I think maybe a 3 or 4-0 would have reflected the game a bit better. But you take it, 3 points. We move. But again, like Reece James, Tony, talk to me about him. How much of a miss is he? Because even for the time he was on this game, he was doing everything.
Yeah, I think you guys are a lot better side when Reece James is in that squad. I think we've seen time and time again when he's out of that squad, your defense struggles. Not just what he offers in defense, but he also offers a fair bit in attack as well. So big loss for Chelsea. It'll be interesting to see how they fill that gap moving forward, given when they were filling it pre-World Cup, they were struggling to get results. They were struggling to hold teams out. So it'll be an interesting one to see. I hope he does get fit. I hope, you know what, if it takes an extra 3-4 weeks, like let's get it 100% fit so we don't have this as a reoccurring thing every couple of weeks when he comes back. For Chelsea, good result. Still a fresh coach, so there's still room for improvement. But again, like you said, this could have finished 3, 4, 5-0 if you put away those chances that you got into those positions. So good game for Chelsea. Bournemouth, it's not all doom and gloom just yet. I mean, a 2-0 result against Chelsea, I think if you offered that to Bournemouth, they probably would have taken it at the start of the season. So they sit in 16th. They have 16 points. 1 win clear of the drop. I think there's better things to go for them moving forward. So I think they'll do enough to stay up. But both teams, I guess, can take somewhat negative, somewhat positives away from this game.
Yeah, spot on. I think with Chelsea, we're just going to have to take it a game at a time. Can't be too excited about this season. I think top 4 could well and truly be off the cards already. There's just teams out there that are stronger than us and a few points ahead of us already. So we just take it one by one, build, and hopefully finish thereabouts. And then, I mean, obviously I want to finish top 4, but we just finish thereabouts. We push it. And then hopefully throughout the season, Potter's got his philosophy running through the club and we can kind of build for next season. But look, one by one, we take it 2-0, 3 points. Tony, same for you, 3 points, 3-0 over Nottingham Forest. Talk to me about Rashi, the World Cup man, having a blinder of a season. Antonio Martial as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's positives. We've always, as a United fan, we've held these two in very high hopes that they're going to go out there. They're going to be enough to score goals week in, week out. So let's hope this is obviously a good place moving forward. The lineup, obviously, there was no Butcher. He's probably still celebrating somewhere. I do believe he's back in Manchester now, but he was probably still celebrating during that game. Obviously, Wan-Bissaka started on the right. Malacia started on the left. Luke Shaw, I thought, had an absolute blinder in that centre-back position. But for me, again, I feel so much safer when Varane's in that back line. And when I saw him named when we thought he was going to be out, it was absolute pleasure to me. Casemiro, mate. I feel like we need to send Madrid another 50 million because, I mean, we've been robbed in some deals in the last couple of years, but I feel like we absolutely robbed them with that Casemiro deal. And it's what we've been calling for years. This is a United team that's now playing better football. They're creating more chances. They're looking more solid. Mate, we've been saying it for 5 years. Give us a decent set of defensive mid and we'll do it. So he's gone out. He's got his man. They're playing good football. And besides that, Bruno and the Anthony sometimes playing a bit too much on the ball, trying to be a bit too flamboyant. I think this was a great result. And again, a lot of criticism about VAR, but Nottingham's disallowed goal, I didn't even know why it was getting reviewed. And then when they showed it, it was a clear offside. So it got its job done. And yeah, like you said, we finish just outside the top 4 with a game in hand on Tottenham to move into that top 4.
Yeah, spot on. Casemiro, I mean, the hidden gem, but not so hidden anymore. He just shows that, yeah, all you were crying out for was that holding mid. And it's funny because when he first signed, everybody was saying, oh, he's 31, 32, he's finished already. He's getting scammed here, but then he comes in and it just shows why he's probably the best holding mid in the Prem, if not the world. Been absolute brilliant for you and just what you needed. And it actually just makes me question, would Pogba have worked if he had a Casemiro behind him? Was that,
100%? Imagine that midfield of, if you think of it, Eriksen, Pogba, the only real difference is Pogba's got age on his side and he's a bit more flamboyant. Now, him and Bruno, do they work together? Who knows? Because they both want to be the trickery, that ball player. But you have a number Casemiro in that defensive mid position, mate. You let those two run right. We've seen what Eriksen can do. So there's no doubt Pogba could have done something, again, when he wasn't injured, which he was a lot while he was at United.
Yeah, definitely would have liked to see it, but you've got Eriksen now, and you could say he's just as good. He's a brilliant player, and all over the park, you guys are clicking. It's good to see Rashford having one of his better goal return seasons. Hopefully, he can continue and score more goals because he's only got 4 in the Prem, but all comps he's doing well. But I think he needs to continue to push on because he showed glimpses before, and then he's going to got injured or something like that. So if he can have an injury-free season, he'll be very good for you guys. Nottingham Forest, look, they're sitting second bottom. It's going to be a tough season for them, and they probably are the ones that are going to go straight back down, regardless of the fact that they signed about 30 players. But now, look, let's get into the team who we all think should be top of the table, but they're not. City 3-1 over Leeds this morning to finish the round off. Erling Haaland, I mean, the World Cup break was no dramas for him. He just had a bit of time to recharge his batteries and he's straight back at it. Tony, talk to me about Erling Haaland and how scary he is.
There's 20 teams in the Premier League and he's outscored 9 of them. So that's how scary he is. One of them being your boys who have struggled in attack, but to outscore 9 of the 20 teams in the Premier League it's absolutely unreal. He's hit 20. He's broken that record for the fastest to 20. They had an interview with him post-game and they were trying to get out of him, what's your record? What do you think you're going to go for? And then they said, does it have a 4 in front of it? And he goes, you can think what you want, but I'm not going to say anything. So it's quite scary this early in the season. What is it? They've played 15 games. He's hit 20 goals. So I think that record is probably going to go out the window. De Bruyne probably gets the assist record if he keeps going. And it's a scary, scary sight that they got a player like Haaland so cheap.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. Obviously, his wages are ridiculous, but yeah, they did get him for no matter what they paid for him. Honestly, it's a bargain. They could have paid $1 billion for him, and it's a bargain. He's outscored 9 of the teams, Chelsea being one of them. He's a freak because the layoff could have hindered a lot of players, but he just scores goals. And look, they're not good goals. A lot of the goals he scores aren't good goals. Maybe he scores 1 in 10 good goals, but you take it. You don't need it. That's not what you're asking for. You don't need him to be that player that scores a ton of goals. You just want him to be there and score the ones that need to be. It's fair play to them. They're not top of the table, but they should be. They're thereabouts. And the man's just a very scary man in general. So, look, I don't really think we need to say much about City. Leeds, they're doing all right. It's a tough game for them. I don't think we're ever going to get points from this game. But let's just finish it on the fact that Haaland is a scary, scary man. Like, give us the title for the video, I think.
100%. He's a very, very scary man. And if I'm just glad that we only have to play him one more time this year in the league because we've already got one of those hat tricks out of the way, and there's probably another one coming.
That's it. Tony, thanks for joining me. We'll be back pretty much very shortly, obviously in a week's time, but they're going to be flying through because we're going to catch up for the World Cup break. So, Tony, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again soon.